Thank you, thank you, thank you. Gong hei fa choi, gong si fa chai. It's an honor and privilege to be here with you today, and I'd like to especially thank Jeannie Young, who invited me to discuss all the activities surrounding the Lunar New Year with you. But before I start, I'd like to tell you a little bit about myself. I'm Rosemary Gong, and I'm the author of Good Luck Life, the Essential Guide to Chinese American Celebrations and Culture. I grew up in a small town, Riverbank, California, which is in Stanislaus County. And at that time, my family was the only Chinese family in our town. There were no Chinese language school, no calligraphy classes, no ribbon dancing. We barely had martial arts. But because of our isolation, my extended family was very close-knit with my grandparents and a multitude of aunts and uncles and cousins. And we would gather for all the Chinese holidays and celebrations. After college, I moved to San Francisco for my first job, and I lived in Chinatown so I could be around the corner from my grandparents who had retired there. And as many of you may know, in the Chinese tradition, the generations are tasked to keep an eye out for each other. And this is where I became more connected with being Chinese. I'm a third generation Chinese American. My grandfather immigrated from the Guangdong province to America in 1929. I can say about 29 words of Cantonese, and many of those words aren't worth repeating. As you can probably tell, I speak like an American, I act like an American, I even think like an American, but I'm also Chinese, and I wasn't willing to toss away that side of me. When my grandfather passed away, and he was the very last of his generation, it was his passing that was the catalyst for me to begin writing my book, Good Luck Life. And I did this because I couldn't find anything like it in the bookstores. I wanted to remember all those traditions that I had grown up with, like the Chinese New Year, which is upon us. On February 12th will be the first day, and it will run for 2 weeks to the 26th this year. And I also celebrated with my family the Dragon Boat Festival, where we would make zhong, sticky rice made with wrapped in bamboo leaves, and we would make them and share them among the family members. We would also have mooncakes during the Mid-Autumn Moon Festival during our family dinner, and then we would also twice a year visit the gravesites at the Chinese cemetery to honor our ancestors. Then there were also all the milestone celebrations that we had thrown in wild Chinese fashion, the longevity birthdays, those big decade birthdays when people will turn 50, 60, 70, 80, 100, the Chinese wedding, and the red egg and ginger party where we would introduce our new babies into our extended family and the community at large. Now, the most important Chinese festival of the year is approaching, the Chinese New Year, also known as the Lunar New Year to be politically correct, because the holiday is also widely celebrated by many other Asian ethnicities, especially in Southeast Asia, such as Vietnam and Singapore and Malaysia. CNY, which is Chinese New Year, is a 15-day celebration. It begins on the new moon and concludes on the full moon, which is regarded as the Lantern Festival. The first day typically begins quietly with a day of rest and then escalates into something like a huge block party. The San Francisco Chinese New Year Parade, which is considered one of the largest illuminated night parades in the United States, is typically held during this time, but with COVID-19, the parade has unfortunately been canceled. This leaves us anticipating an even bigger celebration in the Year of the Tiger, beginning on February 1st, 2022, so you might want to mark that date. This year, we say goodbye to the Year of the Rat and hello to the Year of the Ox. This means that those ox who will turn any age divisible by 12, for example, if you're going to be 12, 24, 36, 48, 60, 72, 84, 96, will have an especially significant year. And it's said that if it's your astrological animal year, that you should wear a small piece of jade as a means of protection because your energies are heightened in your animal year. I always thought it was a great excuse to go out and treat yourself to a nice piece of jewelry. In my family home, we'd get ready by tossing out the old and welcoming the new. And this meant major spring cleaning of giant proportions, like sorting through closets and cupboards and drawers. We'd take down the blinds and the curtains for cleaning, and we'd scrub all the kitchen appliances. Old debts are settled in order to not take them into the new year. And it's taboo to clean your house or cut your hair on New Year's Day, or you risk cutting your luck away. Some even say not to cut your hair for the entire 2 weeks. It's all up to you. Now, I grew up with the kitchen god taped near our family stove. He would get splattered and stained by year's end, and my mom would simply take him down and burn him in the fireplace. I always thought it was a part of the spring cleaning process, but as I was doing research for Good Luck Life, I discovered he's the most important domestic deity who gathers reports on the family's behavior from the previous year to report to the Jade Emperor. And to encourage a good report, families even smear the kitchen god's mouth with honey or molasses so it sweetens his tongue. Some families even dip him in liquor before burning his image to send his spirit to the heavens. And this is done approximately a week before the new year. After all the spring cleaning is done, we would go out shopping for brand new clothes, preferably something in red because the color red is good luck to the Chinese. Red carries the symbolic association with fire, the sun, and life energy. It's our lifeblood, the color red, that demons fear the most. We'd buy something new to wear completely over and under. If I get a new dress, I'd get a coat and a jacket, shoes, underwear, new accessories, and it was the same for my brother as well. Shopping is also extremely important during this time. Groceries require some planning as the festival approaches. Asian markets become very busy and households stock up on groceries and all kinds of food items for the annual dinner, as well as all the gatherings and the visits that are held at the home. The exchange of hostess gifts is practiced also during this time. When visiting friends and family in their home, you bring a gift, typically something symbolic, maybe of the 5 blessings: fortune, longevity, prosperity, wealth, happiness, and health. When your visitors depart, it is also customary that they leave with a gift. No one comes or leaves empty-handed. Now, I associate the facets of the Chinese New Year to the 5 F's. They are family, friends, food, flowers, and good fortune. The primary theme of the Spring Festival is unity and inclusion and togetherness. In fact, in Old China, there were specific days designated for visits and acknowledgements. For instance, the first day of the new year, respects are made to your ancestors and temples are visited. The family dinner ideally is held on New Year's Eve evening at night. Married women visit their parents on the second day of the holiday. In my family home, tangerines and pomelos, or Chinese grapefruit, are widely displayed throughout the house because tangerines mean luck and the Chinese grapefruit means prosperity and status. They go together like strawberries and cream. They're good separate, but they're even better symbolically together. Oranges connote wealth and sweetness, and they're the ubiquitous hostess gift. So if you visit a Chinese family, you can take a bag of oranges and you can be set. You give them in even numbers, but never in a quantity of 4, because the Chinese word for 4 is a homonym for the word for death. And the Chinese are so superstitious, especially during the New Year, you just don't go there. You'll also see miniature kumquat or citrus trees decorated with small red coin envelopes. We'd hang them with red string like paper ornaments and as an offering to the god of prosperity. During the celebration, there are multiple dinners and social gatherings, but the most important obligation is the family dinner. When I interviewed the multitude of Chinese aunties for Good Luck Life, they unanimously, hands down, agreed that this was the single most important obligation for their families because it symbolized a family's unity. It's like being home for the holidays. Then Auntie Lau, who is a representation of all the wise and wizened aunties that I talked to, reminded me of the old Chinese saying, when a family doesn't share Chinese New Year dinner, its heart will grow cold. And it brought it home for me. The most common celebratory dish associated to New Year is jai, which is a vegetarian dish that includes auspicious ingredients such as dried oysters for good business, fancy long bean threads that look like clear noodles for longevity, dried bean curd for abundance, fat choy, which looks like long black hair for luck, and a host of other symbolic ingredients, and vegetables, green vegetables that are sauteed in a wok with sesame oil and oyster sauce. And have you ever noticed that the Chinese restaurants, the poultry and the fish and the game are served whole, complete with the head and the feet and the fins? This isn't for the shock factor, but the reason for it is because the Chinese traditionally believe serving fish and game and poultry in pieces is considered broken. Good things come whole and complete. Ningguo is Chinese New Year cake, and it's the equivalent to the fruit cake at Christmas time. It's a glutinous rice cake that's caramel colored, sweet, dense, and sticky after being steamed for hours, and it's often found in Chinese bakeries and the larger stores during the New Year. It's typically decorated with sesame and red dates for prosperity and a sprig of pine or cypress for longevity. It's served all around the clock with tea during New Year visits, for dessert, after meals, and even for breakfast for a Chinese version of French toast. And it's widely gifted or regifted during the holiday. Whenever we get visitors at our house during the Chinese New Year, my mother would bust out a sectional red platter of snacks, which is known as the tray of togetherness. It's filled with preserved fruits and seeds and sweets like sugared coconut strips and kumquats and melon and carrot and lotus seeds. These all carry auspicious meanings, which I've also defined in my book. Fresh flowers in the home are an important part of the holiday. The most symbolic being the narcissus, because it's considered the flower of Chinese New Year and means good fortune and prosperity. My personal favorite are the quince branches that mean splendor and prosperity. I like to buy them just so they bloom right on New Year's Day. That's my personal objective. Peonies represent wealth and orchids mean love. And it's often the flower that's designated for the family's matriarch. So if you buy an orchid for your mother or your mother-in-law, it's totally appropriate. A variety of decorations are hung in the home to invite good fortune, such as scrolls and spring couplets, with a variety of well wishes, sayings, and good intentions. Lucky red paper, such as the single foot character, which means luck, is hung prominently. Sometimes it's hung upside down because in some Chinese dialects, the word for upside down sounds like has arrived, so it assumes the meaning of fortune has arrived. There are decorative strings of firecrackers in a multitude of sizes and lengths, and those are hung near the doorway or at thresholds to scare away evil demons. Lanterns are also popular during the Lantern Festival. And then there's the giving and the receiving of lai si or hong bao, red envelopes containing lucky money. Married couples give lai si to children, and the collection is expected to sustain or bankroll them for the entire year. Typically, they contain $1, but it depends on the relationship of who you're giving them to. The practice of giving money in red envelopes comes from the old folk saying that money wrapped in red multiplies. Lastly, when writing Good Luck Life, I learned that the Chinese say thank you 3 times, so all realms of existence can be acknowledged for one's good fortune, and it has certainly been my good fortune to be here with you today. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Gong hei fa choi, 新年快樂